بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. تقبل الله صيامنا وقيامنا. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our siyam and our qiyam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the door of His barakat to us, inshallah ta'ala, and allow us to receive these barakat of Ramadan. So today, inshallah, we'll continue discussing the fiqh of Ramadan. And today's topic will be about the fasting of elderly and people with chronic disease. And this issue is very important for many reasons. Number one, it almost in every family there is somebody who is either with chronic disease or elderly and doesn't fast. And the second reason why this issue is very important is there is a number of misconception and misunderstanding with regards to the ahkam, the fiqh ahkam of such people. So today, inshallah, in this short khatir, I'll try to clarify the ahkam of the sharia with regards to these categories of people. So the first misconception that many of us have, brothers and sisters, that we think that elderly automatically don't fast Ramadan. Since the person is old and aging, so automatically doesn't have to fast Ramadan. And similarly with regards to chronic disease, they think any chronic disease is a permission or gives the person permission to break the fast and feed instead. And that's not true. If you read the Quran and you read the Sunnah and the books of Al-Fuqaha, what we mean by elderly people who reach the age where they cannot handle the fast anymore. So not the age, not itself is the udhr, is the excuse. The reality is the ability of the person is loses his abilities and cannot handle the fast. So it's not the age who gives the person the permission to break the fast and feed instead. In reality is the health. So this is very important. Similarly with regards to chronic disease, not any chronic disease is permission for the person to break the fast and feed instead. What we mean by chronic disease, the illnesses, diseases that the person cannot fast with it. So there are a number of chronic disease, but doesn't prevent the person from fasting. For example, asthma, certain types of diabetes. So there are a number of chronic diseases, but still the person can handle the fast and doesn't harm himself or herself. So such a person, even with chronic disease, must fast Ramadan. So what we mean by elderly and by chronic disease is people who cannot handle the fast. And that leads us to the second item in this khatira, which is how do we know that the person cannot handle the fast? As we said last khatira, by three ways that the fuqaha stated. Number one is by experience. The person tried to fast before and was overwhelming, and it was exhausting for the person, it was harming for the person. That's a person by experience knows that he or she cannot fast. So this is the first way, by experience. The second way, as the ulama said, by ikhbar tabib thiqa, by doctor advice. If doctors advise not to fast, as we explained last week or last khatira with regards to the doctor, what we mean by a doctor, keep that in mind. Not any doctor advice we should take it for granted with the conditions that we stated last week. So the second way of knowing that the person cannot fast is by doctor advice, and the third way of knowing the person cannot fast is by ghalabat al-dhann, which means certainty or close to certainty that the person with such condition cannot handle to fast. So we said the first item is people of or elderly and people with a chronic disease not automatically cannot fast with this condition. Number two, the way or the ways that we know that the person cannot fast is these three ways. Now, when we say that elderly cannot fast and also people with chronic disease cannot fast, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these two categories made for them specific rules, which what we call it Al-Hidaya. So these people can pay the fidya instead of fasting. Fidya is a ransom or a financial penalty, you can call it, something like this, to pay or to feed instead of fasting, and that itself is a ibadah. So it is a replacement of the fast. And also there is another misconception, brothers and sisters. Some elderly cannot fast because of the two reasons. They cannot fast because of the age and also because of chronic diseases. And this is the same rulings. But the misconception here, some people who are reaching very old age, they lose their mind with the time. So they are not with their aql anymore. And the practice that we have in Muslim, among Muslims, is they pay fidya on behalf of these people. But the reality is people start losing their aql, their mind, they are not mukallaf anymore. And these people that they reach the age of al-kharaf and they are not with their full mind and brain functioning anymore. So these people don't have to fast and we don't have to pay fidya on their behalf because these people out of taklif. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, رفع القلم عن ثلاث. رفع القلم عن ثلاث عن النائم حتى يستيقظ وعن المجنون وعن الصبي حتى يعقل. So people who are reaching very old age and with the time they are losing their aql, these people don't have to fast and we don't have to pay fidya on their behalf anymore because they are out of taklif. However, there are some cases where these people, their aql comes and goes. So the ulama said when their aql comes, they fast. If they don't have chronic diseases and they have the ability to fast. So if their aql comes, they fast. When the aql goes and they are not mentally focused anymore, khalas, they are out of taklif. Even if they start the day fasting and throughout the day they lose their aql, they ate, that's fine. And they don't have to make up these days. So they fast whatever they can and they break the fast whenever their aql or they are not aware anymore and they are not conscious anymore. And it is haram, brothers and sisters, for us to prevent certain people from eating, because I know from certain cultures, people who reach that age, we prevent them from eating. They think, oh, they are breaking the hurma of Ramadan, so let's prevent them from eating. That is haram, because you are against the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These people can eat and can drink and they are not in state of taklif. They are like kids. They don't have to fast anymore. So this is, please keep this in mind while we are talking about elderly. When we talk about elderly, we are talking about elderly who have their aql, who their aql is functioning very well. So what is the hukum of elderly and people with chronic disease? Is they don't have to fast and pay the fidya instead. Now what are the rulings of the fidya? The first ruling of the fidya, it must be from the person himself and or give the tawkil to somebody else. One of the misconception and the wrong practices among Muslims is they pay fidya on behalf of their parents without parents giving permission or tawkil or even performing the niyyah. So brothers and sisters, al-fidya is a ibadah. It must be done by the person himself or herself who is breaking Ramadan. So yes, as bir al-walidain, I can pay the fidya on behalf of my parents, but they need to establish the niyyah and they need to give me a tawkil, authorize me to give fidya on their behalf, commission to give fidya on their behalf, because it is a ibadah that is وجبت في ذمتهم. It is ibadah upon them to be done. So we cannot do it on behalf of them unless they give us permission, authorization, and also they need to establish the niyyah. So the first condition on paying the fidya, yes, it doesn't have to be from their money, it can be from the kids, it can be from other people, but it must be done by them, meaning they establish the niyyah and they give permission to their kids or to somebody else or themselves paying the fidya. So this is the first hukm with regards to the fidya. The second hukm with regards to the fidya is when can we pay the fidya? Some people ask, can we pay the fidya at the beginning of Ramadan for the entire month? The answer is no. We cannot pay the fidya at the beginning of Ramadan for the entire month. The fidya is a ibadah to be performed when the fast is mandatory upon the person. So if you pay the fidya for the entire month, the person may die the second or the third or the fourth day of Ramadan, and he doesn't have to pay the entire month. He doesn't have to pay on behalf of the entire month. So we pay the fidya as Ramadan goes. After the first day, you can pay the fidya for the first day. The second day, you can pay the fidya for the second day. And as Ramadan goes, as you pay the fidya. So this is the first mechanism of paying the fidya, which means you pay per day. Every day goes, you pay its fidya. The second way is you delay the fidya until the end of Ramadan and you pay the fidya all at once. But you cannot pay the fidya on behalf or on the beginning of Ramadan for the entire month because ibadah lam tajib ba'd. This ibadah is not a mandatory upon the person, is not in his dhimma or her dhimma yet. So we cannot do the ibadah before its time. Like fasting Ramadan before the day of Ramadan, you cannot. So this is a replacement of the fast. It must be done when the fast comes. You pay the fidya, or you can delay it until the end of Ramadan and pay for the entire month. The ulama said the only exception if there is a dire need, there is a maja'a, there is a dire need in a society where it is an exception, not the default. In this case, some ulama gave permission to give the fidya at the beginning of Ramadan when there is a dire need. Otherwise, we have to pay the fidya after the day that we don't fast or at the end of Ramadan. So this is the second hukm of al-fidya. The third hukm of the fidya, can we pay the fidya, can we give the fidya as cash or must be food? The ulama, rahimahumullah, differed on this into two groups. The majority of scholars said must be food because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ or فِدْيَةُ طَعَامِ miskin. So Allah said food. You need to feed needy people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran food. However, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and some scholars said it can be performed as food as well as cash, money, because that person who is in need, he can also buy food with that money. Brothers and sisters, it is best to be performed food, especially if you understand the objectives of fidya. The fidya is not like zakat. The fidya to be given to people who are really in dire need, don't even afford food, their daily food. So if you think about it that way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meant this type of sadaqat, this type of ahkam to be delivered to this category of people. So this type of ahkam don't meant to be given to people to pay the bills or to pay the rent or to pay for their education or something like this. It meant to be food, to feed people who are in dire need, people who are hungry. So if you understand this way, it's better to be performed as a food. However, if you give it to these organizations who are feeding people, even if you give it to them as money, as long as they deliver it as food, that takes the hukm as if you are giving it as food, insha'Allah ta'ala. Now, what is the amount? The amount is to feed a needy person per every day you don't fast, like you eat. من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم. من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم. Whatever you eat, okay, that the amount of food you give it to a needy person that day. And the ulama said it can be given to multiple needy people, as well as it can be given to one person for 30 days. You can feed one faqir for 30 days. You can, for example, a needy person, you can invite him, for example, every day in Ramadan, and that will be a fidya. If you can invite him in your house and eat with you for 30 days, that is kafara. This is a fidya. Also, you can buy for him a food for 30 days, grocery for 30 days, and that will be also enough for 30 days. You can also buy for a family of, for example, let's 6 individuals, 6 members or 5 members, but you give them a food that is enough for 30 miskin, 30 faqir. That's also sufficient. So all these ways are, inshallah, acceptable, brothers and sisters. So these are the ahkam of the fidya. It can be given money, but it's better to be given food. It cannot be given before, it cannot be given all at the beginning of Ramadan. We can give it to multiple needy people, as well as we give it all to one miskin. It cannot be performed without the person who is not fasting establishing the niyyah and give us authorization to feed on his or her behalf. So this is very important rule with regards to the fidya. And brothers and sisters, last khatira we spoke about the pregnant women as well as the breastfeeding women, and in certain matters we said they need to pay the fidya. The same ahkam of the fidya, this ahkam applies for the pregnant and the breastfeeding woman when they must pay the fidya. This is the ahkam of the fidya. Lastly, if the person dies and has a fasting to be performed and dies before performing this fasting, there is two scenarios for such a case. The first scenario, if the person is from the category we just covered, which means passed away, but before he passed away, this Ramadan or Ramadan before, he couldn't fast because of chronic disease or because he was very, very old and cannot handle to fast. If this is the situation, we don't have to fast on his behalf or her behalf. All what we need to do is to pay the fidya on their behalf. To pay the fidya on their behalf. So this is the first scenario. The second scenario, if the person dies not from this category, maybe he was sick, he was traveling, but the sickness was not permanent sickness, was temporary sickness, and it was over, and he dies before making up for Ramadan. Or he got sick and break the fast in Ramadan and he passed away in this Ramadan or right after Ramadan. So we don't know if this is chronic disease or no, because he just got sick in Ramadan and after Ramadan died, or in Ramadan dies. So if this is the case, the ulama differed into two groups also with this regard. Some ulama said we fast on that person, on his behalf, and because the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, فَدَيْنُ اللَّهِ أَحَقُّ أَنْ يُقْضَى. One day a man came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and he said, Ya Rasulullah, إِنَّ أَبِي مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ صَوْمٌ أَفَأَقْضِي عَنْهِ. My father passed away and he has sawm to be performed. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked that man, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى أَبِيكَ دَيْنٌ أَكُنْتَ قَاضِيَهُ. If your father has loan upon him, do you pay that loan? He said, of course I would pay. He said, فَدَيْنُ اللَّهِ أَحَقُّ أَنْ يُقْضَى. So the loan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more deserving to be paid, which means to fast on his behalf. The second group of scholars said paying the fidya on his behalf. Instead of fasting, paying the fidya on his behalf. So these are the rulings of elderly brothers and sisters, as well as people with chronic disease. And we said it is not automatically they don't fast. They can only break the fast with the conditions that we stated. And also these people must understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ما يريد الله ليجعل عليكم في الدين من حرج وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. Allah said in the Quran, don't kill yourself because Allah is merciful upon you. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he used to find or to see people who are struggling and fast, and that fast causing a big damage, harm upon them, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to prevent them from fasting. And he used to say, لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصِّيَامُ فِي السَّفَرِ. One day a man was traveling with him, and he was very, very overwhelmed, tired, and he was fasting. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, this is not from the Islam. This is not from righteousness to fast under these conditions. So also we need to explain to people who are under these conditions that they cannot fast. At some point they would commit sins if they fast, and they would harm themselves. So we need to understand that, brothers and sisters. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acceptance. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.